Which of the past 4 presidents has done the best on deficit spending? Interesting points. Hello, this is ChartGPT. Today, we asked that question, and who the last 4 presidents have done the best on deficit spending? We're talking about Bush 2, Obama, Trump, and Biden. Kind of take a look at some detail. Obviously, recently in the news, they passed this $1 trillion omnibus bill again, and everybody's crowing. They're even talking about replacing the GOP House Speaker once again. We've been through this before, and everybody's crowing about it. Everybody's talking about the deficit spending. We need to do something about it, but no one's doing anything about it. And of course, here's the latest data, and it's going exponential. National debt recently skyrocketed over $34.578 trillion and counting. We'll be at 35 very shortly, and going higher. Now, everybody's going to get in the media and say, well, I'm the deficit hawk and these guys are not. And it's going to be a political free-for-all, especially going into this U.S. presidential election, so we thought we'd get into it. Here's some kind of a faux pas that we saw here. This was a chart I saw. I don't know who these fact first people are, but no opinions, just facts. Trademarked. That's nonsense here. Joe Biden had 19% GDP growth, and I forgot a little thing called real GDP versus the raw numbers. Obviously, the inflation has been at least that amount and more. We'll see that in a chart here shortly. And they're trying to paint this picture that the Democrats are doing this wonderful things. I don't know who these people are, but they're obviously they're not being honest brokers here, so that's not true. And here's another one I saw picked off of Twitter, or X, I should say. And somebody's trying to make the idea here that Democrats are doing cleanup after Republicans' mess-ups here. And so, like recently, Biden has been talking about, I've created 15 million jobs and all this, and cut the deficit by the largest amount in history. Of course, forgetting a few of the extraneous factors such as COVID and the Great Recession of 2008. Unless you think Trump somehow caused the COVID, which I think is nonsense. So everybody's trying to play this game of cherry-picking numbers. But here's the thing on this. I did this little fictitious model here. Let's say you have a company. It's making $100,000, has an expense of $80,000, and your net benefit is $20K. And so somebody comes in with a whiz-bang strategy, and he says, I grew revenues by 50%, but he also had expenses that grew, and so his net benefit was 0. But he can claim in one hand that he's grew the revenues in 50%. The other guy comes in there, he actually reduces revenue and lowers expenses, and the net benefit goes up to 30,000. In this case, he grew profits by 50%. Now, this assumes you're not going after market share. It's not necessarily concerned, so it depends on what you're going after. So the point is, you can cherry pick numbers and make one person look bad and the other person look good. And so this is anybody that just tried to cherry pick a number out of the sky and not being honest. They're not an honest broker. Anyway, let's move on here. So we have to judge a president's economic performance based on many factors. So you have to look at the GDP they created, and that's inflation adjusted. And you have to look at the inheritance. What did they inherit? Like George W. Bush, let's be honest, he inherited a pretty good economy from the Clinton and the dot-com era. Barack Obama inherited a very bad economy because that was the 2008 crash. Donald Trump inherited an average economy. It was okay. From Obama, wasn't great. And Joe Biden got in a COVID economy. Baseline difficulty of easy. So when you're looking at his improvement in employment and improvement in all kinds of statistics, they're going to look good. Of course they will, because of the cherry picking and the events of the low baseline. Bush had a good number, so he had a hard time to beat it. Obama had an easy time because he came out of the Great Recession. And again, not to say he caused it, but nevertheless, when he quotes his number, he can quote all these wonderful job gains, which is basically not really his doing. It was just the economy recovering on its own. Donald Trump had an average economy, and he grew it, which is hard to do, especially with the previous baseline. So in this case, in terms of looking at all those factors, he does get high marks in terms of long-term strategies. And this idea that the trendline growth for GDP is going higher, and it is going higher under Democrat than it is on Republican, even though the Republicans aren't helping, as you can see here, this exponential debt. Now, in the case of COVID, it's a little bit different than the case of Bush 2 and the what they call those headwinds. Bush had the war on terror, which could be argued that could have been fought cheaper We didn't. Do we need to spend 4, 5, 6 trillion on that? Could we just gone to Bora Bora and got Osama bin Laden and been done with it? Did we have to do all that nation building, costing us a fortune in 20 years in Afghanistan? So there could have been ways of doing that. The point is, you got to be careful with looking at history. Now, here's the percent of earners with wage growth less than inflation. So that means here, recently under Biden, 55% of the people of earners have less than inflation. So you can see that under Trump, things were better in terms of the job growth versus inflation, because we all know inflation's been horrendous. And then income equality. This is why Trump's getting a lot of good marks from minorities and less advantaged people. He did better in terms of the lower 50 percentile in terms of income equality. Biden has been the worst. So again, it depends on where you sit in the economy. If you sit in the bottom half of the economy, Trump was much better than Biden. Biden has been great for the 1%ers. That's why all the Hollywood people and rich people are for him, of course. Then we look at the most recent national budget surplus, and you can see over the years, even as far back as 2000, it's continuing to go down. And of course, recently, since the focus has been Biden versus Trump, Trump had his COVID budget bust, true. Biden had a little bit of that to clean up, and then, but on average, Trump has been better on the budget than Biden has if you subtract COVID. Now, am I cherry picking on this? Possibly. But here was the president's spending. He's 45% of his spending was on this COVID. Now, you could argue that perhaps he could have done differently. Maybe done no stimulus checks, less draconian lockdowns, maybe more open to alternative therapeutics. But this wasn't what his political opponents were saying. They were actually trying to get him to do more stimulus and more lockdowns. So if you're going to criticize Trump, this is what you should have criticized him on. But his opponents didn't criticize him on that. In fact, they went the other way, which is quite interesting. So we can cherry pick. We can look at, if we do the budget numbers ex-COVID, Trump probably came out the best in terms of managing the deficits. Anyway, take a look at our AI and see what more information you get in terms of how you can best judge the performance of a president, and take our online polls. Which of the past 4 presidents has done the best in deficit spending? Be interesting what your take is, and you have to be honest about it. Be fair and honest. Otherwise, you're just playing into what the media wants you to believe. In any case, don't forget to subscribe.